Hi, this is Mike Clausen, president of Illumify Media Global, and I am here with an author of ours. We are publishing her book soon, Rachel Carter. Why don't you introduce yourself and introduce your book?
Thank you, Mike. I am Rachel Carter, and I wrote this lovely book here called Enduring the Cure, My MS Journey to the Brink of Death and Back.
I love the book cover, by the way.
Thank you, my mom. It's my mom's art.
All right. So tell us more about your book.
My book is, it's mostly about it's about my journey with multiple sclerosis and how I found a way out when I thought there was no hope. I describe my symptoms, how I lived with the disease, and how I had everything caught up to me all of a sudden. I had a really sharp turn downhill, and it happened so fast. And then I found out about HSCT, hematopoietic stem cell transplant. It is a way to stop the progression of the disease.
Wow. So why did you write the book?
I wrote the book to help others. It is hard to go through something really, really difficult in life and not have a way to make it good. And I did that I knew from the beginning I'm going to share my story with others. So I wanted to share my story so they could find hope, so they could find out about the cure for the disease also, so they can stop the progression of their disease, and so people could just learn how to get through a difficult situation.
Now, you said that your doctor hadn't even heard of this cure. Tell us more about what it is.
Okay, so the HSCT is a hematopoietic stem cell transplant. It's where you use your own stem cells to build a brand new immune system. It's basically a reboot of your immune system, like if you reboot a computer. So it doesn't remember that it had the bad disease inside of it. So I was seeing a specialist at a teaching hospital, one of the best in the country, and she still had not heard about this. So when I heard about it, it was really widely unknown. Most people didn't know it existed, that they were doing it for this. But then when I finally did get it done, a lot of people now know about it and are trying to get into it. So even if they already know about this disease, this will help them make the decision of whether it's something they want to go through, because they will get to learn like how it changed my life and also what it was like going through it.
Now, how will readers benefit by reading your book?
Well, it's not just, it's a really good guidebook for someone who is planning on going through a stem cell transplant. But aside from that, it's a story of hope. Anybody can find hope in this book for whatever situation they might be dealing with in their lives, because I detail how I thought about things, how I dealt with things, and how I kept moving forward.
Right. Now, you use the word cure in your book. Tell us more about why you chose that word.
Okay, I'm glad you asked that, because I did actually receive a lot of pushback from the MS community. Other people with MS didn't like me using that word because of the way MS works. It attacks parts of your brain. And so there are parts of my brain that don't work. I have brain damage, and that probably won't go away. It can get better, but it's never going to go away completely. So the word cure implies that I don't have any problems from the disease anymore, and I always will have all that. But the key is that if you could get the transplant as soon as you find out you have MS, you won't get all the damage. So then you would be cured. So that's why I use the word.
Right. So you're telling people too, people who have MS, here is the cure that could possibly change your life, like this changed yours.
Exactly. It doesn't work for everybody, but it works for a vast majority. I say about 85% of the population, it stops their disease progression. For some, they still keep having disease activity after the transplant, but I haven't. And there are people out there that have been going 20 more years.
So your journey hasn't been easy, and you don't soft pedal that. You're very honest. Tell us why you chose to be so honest about your story.
Okay. Yeah, I don't sugarcoat it at all. I think it's important the reason I wrote this book was so that somebody would be able to make a really informed decision. And part of that is how horrible going through it is. Because you have to kill your entire immune system. So you get a large amount of chemotherapy, and it shuts down your body before it builds a brand new immune system. So there are times where you're in the hospital basically in a bubble. You can't interact with people, and you pretty much feel dead and you want to be dead. So I was really honest about everything that happened and honest about how I am afterwards, because I don't want it to be a book that, oh, look, this is what I did and I'm great. I want it to be real, you know, and I am great. I'm so much better than I was, but I don't make it seem like, I don't want it to be a fairy tale. I want it to be real life. So I just tell a completely honest story.
So what were you like before your diagnosis?
I was unstoppable before my diagnosis. I was a go-getter. I did everything I could. I was a girl on the high school powder puff football team that they decided they had to put boys that played football up against me because no girl could beat me. I was the one that I couldn't be stopped. If they told me I couldn't have a job because only guys did that job, I proved that I could do it, and I did it better than the man. I was extremely capable and strong.
Well, what I love what's in your book is we have photos, before and after photos, before, during, and after, actually. And my favorite photo is you and your motorcycle. I just think it really epitomizes who you were beforehand. So how did you find out that you had MS?
I found out I had MS because well, a lot of different things happened before I actually knew I had the disease. It took about a year, and some people, it takes years and years to get diagnosed because it's so different for everybody. Everybody's journey is different. And what happens though is it's your central nervous system that doesn't work correctly. So I lost my sense of balance, I lost my depth perception, and I lost the ability to use my arm. I couldn't use my arm at all at one point. I can use it again, like both my hands work now, but you lose stuff. That part of your brain just stops working. So you're telling yourself, lift your arm, but nothing's happening. So that's a sort of thing that happened. Now,
were you married before, at that point?
No, I was not. I was single. I knew my husband at the time. He was a really good friend of mine for 9 years before we started dating.
And he decided to go ahead and jump into this with you.
Yeah, apparently he really loved me. Who knew?
Well, and I think this is a tribute to Josh as well, that, you know, you don't know what you're getting yourself into, but the fact that, you know, he knew that you had this diagnosis, and he was willing to walk with you through this. That's pretty amazing.
He knew what could happen, and he just assumed it wouldn't, and then it did. And there was one point where he said, yes, I know I said I would be with you, and it's not a big deal, but I had no idea that this would happen. He had no idea it would be like that. But yeah, he did stick by me, and we got through it. And without him, he actually was a huge support in me getting HSCT. Without being married to him, I'm not sure it would have happened.
Right. I want to back up just a little bit. So here you have this vibrant life. You are, you know, you take no prisoners the way that you live your life, and you find out you have MS. How did you respond? What was going on inside of you when you found this out?
It was surreal. I didn't believe it at first. I didn't believe it at all, and I couldn't comprehend what it meant that I had a disease like this. When I first heard the word multiple sclerosis, I didn't even know what it meant, but I knew right away it was bad. I knew that it wasn't like a cold, it was bad. And so just finding out that, just thinking about the fact that your own body is like eating your own brain away is really it's an icky feeling that I felt like I was being, my body was a traitor to me.
Right. So what kept you going?
What kept me going when it got really bad was mostly my kids. I knew that I had to get home for them no matter what. I knew that I had to, and I didn't get out of bed every day. There were times where I didn't get out of bed for weeks because it was too hard to even think about how I might walk out of my bedroom, if that makes sense. I was just in such pain, so much pain, I couldn't think at all, really. So, but I knew I had to keep going so that my kids would have a mom, no matter what. At least they had a mom.
Right. How many years did you go from the initial symptoms until you had that transplant?
So it was 14 years after I big diagnosis. But you have to understand, the first 12 years, I lived a very unaffected life. There were times where I would just like take a month off work, and I moved in with my parents usually when I went through a period where the disease was actively attacking my brain, because you get so tired you can't really do anything. So I would move in with my parents, and they would feed me and that sort of thing. And then I'd go back to work, and I didn't tell anybody why I was gone, because I didn't want people to know that part of me, because it was mostly hidden. And but I realized that when I did tell people that I had MS, everybody was surprised. They didn't know, because you do live relatively normal for most of the time. So.
Right. So what role did your faith play in your journey?
I think that in my mind, there's a very clear line from God to me finding HSCT. I had been looking for a job, and I got a lead from somebody that I knew through a friend. They told me that I should talk to somebody that worked in this company, and I interviewed with them, and I had no experience because it was a lumber industry company. It was the pressure treating company. And I had never worked in the lumber industry before, so I didn't really know about it. But we talked, and he just decided I was a really good fit for the company. And I actually did pretty well at it. I learned about the product really fast, and I was very, very good at what I did. And because I had that job that I randomly found out about, I put my kids in a Christian school right by that office, and that's where I met the woman who told me about HSCT that would stop the progression of my disease.
Wow, amazing. So there are people watching this interview, and they're dealing with a debilitating disease. Maybe it's MS, maybe it's cancer, maybe it's something else. What advice would you give them?
My advice is I have two really good pieces of advice, I think. First, you don't give up, but just keep looking for something. And if you can't find it, just know that it will be there. Just keep moving forward. But you also have to, aside from moving forward in your own life, you have to find something outside of your life. Don't obsess over what you're going through. Find something outside of what you're going through to find positive things that you're going to still produce in life.
I think that's really good advice, because it's so easy to focus on the problem and make that our identity. And then it just takes us down this downward spiral that we can't get out of. So to get, basically what I hear you saying is get your focus off of yourself and onto somebody else, onto something else, onto the cure, onto finding the cure.
Or sharing the story.
Well, and again, thinking about how, your doctor didn't even know about the cure. You had to find out through, there were a bunch of things that had to happen in order for you to find out. So in the medical community, there's so much going on right now that, some of that responsibility can be in the hands of the person who's suffering from all this stuff to go find it and see what else is out there. And you found it, and you had a great doctor, but you had to find it some other way.
Yes, people have to there's so much happening in the medical world right now. Cures are being found, and before they're put out there to the public, they have to do all the studies on them. So I was in a study at the very beginning of them doing HSCT for multiple sclerosis. So I found out about it before it was commonplace. It still isn't commonplace. It's still in the study. You can get it done overseas, but in America you have to get into a study in order to do it. Otherwise, it's not approved by the FDA, but you can still get it done overseas. But before that, if I hadn't found out about it when I did, like I said, it was all like it was happening so fast when I went downhill. Like I said, it was 2 years from running a marathon to not being able to cross the room. 2 years was all. And if I hadn't found it right then, I'm sure I wouldn't be walking today.
Right. So I guess the last piece of advice I'd offer in this whole thing is to read the book.
Absolutely.
So Enduring the Cure, because it's not only just a journey, it's how did you go about finding the answer, the cure, and what kind of perseverance does it take in order to make it. So if you're looking for hope, if you're looking for inspiration, some reason to keep going, read Enduring the Cure.
Yes, I talk a lot about tips and tricks and things I had to do mentally just to make it okay.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much for your insights and your wisdom. And again, you can find the book on Amazon, barnesandnoble.com. You can order it in your bookstore if it doesn't already have the copy. But congratulations on finishing that book and on enduring all the way to the cure. And it's just been a pleasure talking to you today.
Thank you very much, Mike. Buy the book today at a store near you.